Very pleasant good afternoon to all of our viewers. We are delighted to have you on Let's Talk, another Sabbath afternoon. We welcome you wherever you are. If you are joining us via Second Advent Radio, another Sabbath afternoon, we are so you wherever you are. Delighted that you have chosen to tune in today. And for those of you who are on Facebook, those of you on SLC Adventist YouTube, or those of you who are on SLC Church Channel YouTube, we welcome you just the same. We have a very important subject this afternoon. We are discussing the Christian and insurance. This is actually part one, because this afternoon we're going to be focusing on the health insurance aspect. And for part two, next week we will talk about that in a while, but for part two, we will be dealing with the whole matter of life insurance. We are delighted to have two very special guests with us this afternoon, but before I introduce our guests, I would like to invite you, wherever you are this time, to bow your heads for a word of prayer, shall we? Eternal Father and our God, thank you for the opportunity to share again with our friends in Radio Land, and those watching on Facebook, those on YouTube via SLC Church Channel or SLC Adventist. We're delighted that they have all tuned in, and we pray that this program will truly be a blessing. Take full control and guide over in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, friends, as indicated, this afternoon we have two very special guests. We are discussing the Christian and insurance. And you do understand that the whole matter of insurance has become quite a controversial subject in the minds of many Christians. We have two persons who will guide in this discussion this afternoon. First, I want to introduce to you Pastor Orville Joseph. Pastor Joseph is our stewardship director at the South Leeward Conference. Pastor Joseph is a pastor of tremendous experience. He has been a Seventh-day Adventist minister for the last 31 years. He graduated 31 years ago, way back, from Caribbean Union College, then now University of the Southern Caribbean, with a bachelor's in theology. He has since matriculated at the Andrews University, where he has a master's degree in theology. We are delighted to have Pastor Joseph with us. As I indicated, he is currently serving as the stewardship director. He has some other ministries, but he's here in his capacity as stewardship director this afternoon. We are delighted to have you, Pastor Joseph. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Good afternoon. It's a joy to be on Let's Talk this afternoon. I just want to greet all those who are listening. Good afternoon, pleasant Sabbath to you, and I pray that as we go through our session this afternoon, something will be said that will catch your attention, make you a little more informed on the area of ensuring that as you proceed in life, things are comfortable for you and your family.
Pastor Joseph, I remember that you were the first person to teach me to drive a standard vehicle. So that I will never forget. Thank you so much. And we have a second guest with us this afternoon. Pastor Joseph is in the area of stewardship, and he's going to be talking to us about our stewardship responsibilities, but we do have an insurance expert. And so it is my delight to introduce at this time Miss Janice Hodge. I just want to let you know that, of course, she's a Christian. She's a mother who loves the Lord and delights in helping others. Her career spans over 25 years in the financial industry, from commercial banking to offshore banking and now to insurance. Ms. Hodge is the executive manager of the Life and Medical Division at State Insurance Company Limited. She holds a master's in business administration from the University of the West Indies and anti-money laundering certification from Florida International University and a fellowship in insurance studies from Loma Institute. We are delighted to have you with us this afternoon, Ms. Hodge. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me this afternoon, and Pleasant good afternoon to your listening and viewing audience.
Well, we want to get going in our discussion. As indicated, we are here to talk about the whole matter of the Christian and insurance. You know, many Christians are of the opinion that if they serve God faithfully, they do not need insurance. They claim that God is their insurance. In fact, some people I have even heard say that, well, you know, the companies around are insurance companies, but I have assurance in God. Some Seventh Adventist Christians claim that Ellen White discouraged Christians from seeking insurance. In this two-part series, because as I indicated, we do have a part 2 coming up when we will focus specifically on life insurance. We will discuss the Christian and the insurance. Today, we will introduce the subject and go specifically into health insurance. And in part 2, we look at the controversial subject of life insurance. This discussion is part of a larger discussion that we're going to be having on stewardship and the implications of being good stewards. So I have already introduced our 2 guests. So let me get into the discussion now. Ms. Hodge, I want to begin with you. The subject of insurance is an important one. Some persons see insurance as just another financial profiteering scheme. As someone who has been in the business for quite a while and as experienced as you are, as qualified as you are, how would you explain in as simple a term as possible the basics of insurance so that our audience can understand?
Yes, thank you again, Dr. Greene. Simply put, insurance is really about managing your risk of loss. And you may say, what is risk? Risk is exposure to possible danger, harm, or loss. And then what is risk management? Risk management is the process of identifying those dangers, harms, or whatever loss you may incur. So insurance is really about peace of mind. It's about self-love. It's about family love. Because specifically, speaking about health insurance, most policies allow you to have your spouse and your children as dependents. So simply put, you open an insurance policy, a health policy, you transfer the risk of financial loss from yourself to the insurance company. And I'm sure that we have known of quite a few persons who have had major illnesses and find it rather difficult to come up with the expenses, because as we know, quality insurance or quality healthcare is rather expensive. So it's peace of mind knowing that if the risk of an illness occurs, you can walk into your insurance company and you can confidently present your policy and be covered.
That is a very interesting response. The whole concept there of you're saying, if I heard you correctly, this matter of managing your risk, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little more, explore it a little more. You know, the exposure to danger, harm, or loss, which is risk, and you're indicating here that the whole matter of insurance is transferring this risk. Pastor Joseph, I want to ask you, in light of what Sister Hodge just mentioned there, the matter of risk and risk management, why is this something a Christian should consider as a good steward?
First of all, let me just begin by saying we all love the passage found in 3 John 2. I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health. So that the idea of good health should always be the aspiration of any good Christian. God has given us some very good health guidelines, both biblically and in spirit of prophecy. However, we know that within life there are unforeseen circumstances, and it behoves the Christian to ensure that as he lives his life, that he takes steps necessary in order to mitigate some of the challenges that he's about to encounter in life. Hence, as Sister Hodge points out earlier on, there are certain experiences that we will have in our lives that pose danger, risk to us, and they might be overwhelming for individuals. Hence, when a person decides to take out health insurance, he is actually putting himself in a position that if there are unforeseen circumstances that may befall him or may befall his family, he would be in a position to take care of them in a very adequate way. And so every Christian should look forward in a positive way towards ensuring that he takes a position that allows him to provide the best for his family.
Okay, so you are upfront indicating that the whole matter of health insurance it should not be an option. That you're definitely encouraging Christians to consider that and to get involved.
Yeah, definitely. When I was growing up, my parents would probably find some aid. I remember suffering a lot from colon sore and La Lavington, Maiden Blush were always good remedy for them. But there comes a time in your period of illness where they have to take you to the doctor, and sometimes you might end up at Holberton at the time. These days, medical expenses, being able to get the best care, the cost of it is escalating, far outstripping our income, etc. It behoves for us as individuals, if we're going to be good stewards, to ensure that we make preparation for the days when there are going to be challenges, when there are going to be difficulties. It is hard, Ella, we probably might come to that in a later part in the program, but it's difficult when somebody who's a fellow member of your church or a family or so come and they have to go and do an MRI or they have to undergo a surgical procedure and the cost is exorbitant. You might have to go and take out a loan in order to get that. If you had insurance, things would not be as challenging. And so it is definitely a positive for us if we take that step.
I kind of like the connection you made there, Pastor Joseph, to when you were growing up. In fact, you use a word there that I have not heard for so long. That's La Lavington. Wow. I guess the Caribbean folks who are listening would be able to identify with those kinds of remedies. But let's continue this meaningful discussion. I want to jump right into the matter of health insurance. That's what we're discussing this afternoon. This is an area that is meaningful to me. You know, where I sit as president of the conference, we receive innumerable requests from members and non-members alike asking for assistance in the area of health. It's just always something, and individuals will say, we're not able, this cost is exorbitant. So Pastor Joseph, let me first ask you, how should the Christian relate to health? Why is this, especially for the Seventh-day Adventists, something that is of vital importance?
As I mentioned before, it is God's desire that we always be in good health. But as a people called by God, we have been given a mission for this particular time in history that we need to be able to proclaim. If we are not in optimum health, we will not be able to deliver the message as God intended us to deliver. The other point is that I think is the week we just concluded, God, the lesson tried to indicate that when we allow the God's expectation and principles and guidelines and rules that he has given us to impact the way we live our lives, we become a living testimony to others as to how powerful God is, how wise and understanding a nation, the lesson says. So it is important for us as believers to make sure that we take care of our health, because when we take care of our health, we can take care of our families. When we take care of our health, we can take care of our church community. When we take care of our health, we can take care of the community at large. When we take care of our health, we can do God's mission as he has designed for us to do. So it is always important. I've seen people on the hospital bed who have longed for the opportunity to, Pastor, if I wasn't here, I would be out in the field distributing tracts or talking with people and praying with them and so on. So when we have optimum health, we are able to do so much for ourselves and others. We become a blessing to others. And I think that is why, as Christians, we ought to focus a lot on our health, because our health enables us to fulfill God's mission in our lives.
Occasionally individuals say, are you going to discuss that topic on the Sabbath? Pastor Joseph, you sound like you're preaching there. This is important information for the Christian. And what Let's Talk is really all about. It's practical Christianity. God doesn't want us to live in a vacuum. So, Sister Hodge, let me get to you now. I'll come back to you. I asked Pastor Joseph just now about why it is important for Seventh Adventists to be concerned about their health. Now, you are the insurance expert here. So talk to us about health insurance. What is the principle involved?
The principle involved insurance, insurance.
I just, you probably touched something there. I'm hardly hearing you. Could you go again? Let's see.
Are you hearing me a bit clearer now?
Yeah, that's a little better, yes.
Okay. With any insurance policy, insurance is really centered around trust. Trust that once you have a policy, that the insurance company would honor that policy. Insurance is about financial management. And again, I will say it's about risk management, and it's about peace of mind. Peace of mind knowing that when you have your policy, you can go to the doctor, you can ensure that you look after yourself. Because most insurance policies now are geared or are centered around preventative care. With your insurance policy, our ladies can go and make sure that they have their pap smears done at a very reasonable cost. You pay your co-payment, and our men can go and have their prostates checked. You can always go and have our diagnostics done at diagnostic facilities. There are times when our public service may not be available to do certain diagnostic requirements. And when you have your insurance policy, you can pull your card in confidence, knowing that you have coverage.
Sorry. I'm interrupting you a little bit because you're saying a couple of things that I may understand, but I'm not sure that all of our viewers understand. You said that if I have a policy, I can go and do my diagnostics, I can go and get my annual checkups, etc. How does that work? Okay, so I have a policy. I want to go and do my annual checkup, or I want to go and get some lab work done, or I go visit my doctor and he says I have to do an MRI, or I have to do a colonoscopy or something to that effect. How does the insurance feature in that?
Most insurance companies operate with
okay, I missed you again. I don't know what you touched there, but no, I'm still not hearing.
Okay.
Let's try again.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, that's better.
Most insurance companies operate with a network-based plan, meaning there are doctors, pharmacies, and labs who honor their insurance cards. So, say for instance, you need to have, say, an MRI done. You can confidently pull your card and pay what we call your co-payment, which is normally 20% of the cost. So if that cost is, say, $500, you pay $100. If it's $100, you pay $20. If it's $1,000, you know how much you pay. So it really decreases the expenditure, the direct expenditure that you'll have out of pocket, and you transfer that to the insurance company. Most network-based plan, you just pay your co-payment and you walk away. The insurance company will in turn pay the facility. And I was mentioning that not only illness, you have vision. Most of our plans, we have vision. You can go and check your eyes, and you know that glaucoma and other illnesses of prevalent. And you can also get your glasses, your lens and frames, those are also covered. And also dental work. So and imagine having all these things to do, and you have to pay in full. You have to take the burden of paying for your glasses 100%, or going to clean your teeth, or if you need to have, say, your children need braces, or if they need to have a fill-in, you pay your co-payment. So it really takes the stress off of you, the insured.
Thanks so much for that information. Pastor Joseph, were you saying something?
Yeah, I don't really want to jump in the cause of the insurance, but if you notice, I usually come on a program with my spectacle. The other day I was doing some reading, and the one of the arm of the glasses just fell off, and I had to go to the doctor on Tuesday, the obstetrician, and when she gave me the cost, I mean, by the time we factored into the insurance that I had, the cost was minimal. One of the strange things about dealing with health issues is that they seem always to creep up at the time when you can least afford to deal with them, and so you're going along your merry way, and things are going all right, and you have a strategy as to how you're going to do certain things, and bam, an emergency comes up. Health insurance does come in very handy at that point in time.
Thanks for that example. Sister Hodge, you were adding. It seems every time you pause, your computer pauses. So
maybe she needs to talk.
Okay.
Hear me now?
Yes.
I am.
But there are instances where persons have had to actually mortgage.
Okay, I'm losing you now. Okay, go ahead. Let's see.
There are instances where persons have had to take out.
No, still not hearing.
Is it better?
Okay, yes.
Yes. Well, there are instances where persons have had to take out loans for medical expenses. There are instances where persons have had to take out a second mortgage on their home. If you have a medical insurance policy, most policies today cover overseas care. And there are times when persons have had to travel overseas. The insurance company will even ensure that your ticket is purchased for you to travel overseas. If it's a child, it would pay for an accompaniment. So it really just eases the financial burden of your out-of-pocket expense. And as I said before, it's peace of mind.
Well, let me jump right in and ask, because some persons may be saying, well, it's one thing to say have health insurance, but the premium, which we haven't spoken about at all, the premium is too expensive. So an individual may be saying, it may be good to have the insurance, it provides good coverage, but it is just too expensive. What would you say to a person who says, I think it's too expensive, I'm not sure I can manage?
Well, studies have shown that there is a percentage of persons within our society who definitely cannot afford health insurance. But then there is a percentage who think that they cannot afford health insurance, who actually can afford health insurance. I've known of instances where our financial advisors have done financial analysis with persons, and after looking at their budgets, comparing their income and their expenses, they have been able to make adjustments. I can speak specifically to one instance. There was a young lady who, she was interested in having health insurance. And when we did the financial analysis, we realized that every month every week actually, she was going to the supermarket and, buying groceries, say $300 worth of groceries. But then every day there's an expense for lunch. For buying lunch. So then when we did the financial analysis and spoke to her, and she did actually admit that there are times when she would buy things, like to throw them out of her refrigerator, or things would be in her pantry that would have been expired. So after doing the financial analysis, the young lady was very open to changes, and she started, instead of buying lunch every day, for sometimes a week over $150. She was not only able to open a health policy, but to start a savings plan. So there are times when persons need to make adjustments, and a lot of the times, Dr. Greene, it's really about priorities. It's about setting your priorities and making sure that you plan. You plan to ensure that you're covered in case of an eventuality.
I'm sure Pastor Joseph wants to jump in here from a stewardship perspective, because there are so many things that we sometimes do that are not necessary. Individual and Sister Hodge, you mentioned the matter of priority, where individuals may have cell phones, and every week they're topping up $100 on their cell phones, and then there's cable television, etc. So you're talking about priority there. I kind of want to hear Pastor Joseph's take on this as a stewardship now.
Certainly, there is an expectation in terms of our Christian responsibility. God wants us to maximize whatever we have. Whatever we do, it has to make a lot of sense for us and for the people around us. Certainly, the example that was given by Sister Hodge shows a kind of attitude that some of us have at times, in that we self-indulge at the risk of hurting ourselves in the long run. And so it is important that as a Christian, that you stop, you analyze your life. Sometimes you think that you can't get things done, but it's because you haven't stopped to make a budget, stop to analyze the things that you have been doing. And so if you do that, you will discover that there are so much more that you can do with the resources that God has made available to you. And so when you think that a premium is high, and sometimes I do myself query the premium, but when you look at the risk involved, when you look at the result, I always say, well, there was a time when I used to say, listen, why pay the insurance such amount over the next 10 years, right? I could have saved that amount of money, have that on reserve. And yes, that is true. That is true. But what happened if the accident happens next month or this week? What are you in a position? Are you in a position to recover at that point in time? And so, and again, the strange thing always, just as how I said before, that many times we have health accidents when we can least afford it, and therefore insurance. Sometimes when people don't have insurance, that's the time when calamities seem to strike them. You could be paying insurance year in, year out, and nothing happens. But the day you cancel it, or the day you decide not to get involved, something happens that demands a heavy cash injection. And it is important that we take steps to make sure that we mitigate against those kind of things. So first of all, here's what I would suggest to any Christian, any Seventh-day Adventist. Stop, look at your income, look at your expenses. We generally like to talk about the flexible expenses and the fixed expenses. Look at what you can curtail. Can I curtail my electricity bill? Can I curtail my internet bill? Do I have to have them on all the time? Where can I cut? What about my grocery bill? Am I buying things that I will eventually throw away at the end of the month? Look at things like that and see, and then use the money that you would have saved from that to invest in your health, invest in a good savings account. Just do something that will help to put you in a position that whenever there is a challenge in your life or in your family's life, that they are you and your family are both in a good position to recover when it happens.
Now, I want to say this again, because, sometimes when a request comes for help, that is, my child was born with a hole in the heart, and we don't have any money, we don't have any insurance, and and the doctors are saying it's going to be $35,000, sometimes $50,000 for the operation, etc. The average person definitely cannot afford to pay $50,000 out of pocket for an operation. So that becomes, those situations. Now, Sister Hodge mentioned earlier that you may go to do your annual checkups and you only pay 20%. And I mean, that's good. But I think the real issue with insurance, the real benefit to me is when you have those major catastrophic illnesses that, as you mentioned, Pastor Joseph, they don't knock at your door and say, I'm coming. They just turn up unexpectedly. But here is, there is a reality, however, that many individuals struggle with managing their expenses. And we're speaking stewardship. Ms. Haji, yourself, you are a financial advisor. So we're talking about stewardship here. We're talking about proper management. I remember while I served for a short while as a stewardship director, I started scouting insurance companies. Ms. Haji, I think I had a conversation with you myself on this. The process of exploring with a few local companies the possibility of them creating a plan that church members can access. The challenge here was that most insurance companies were happy to do something like that. Many of them said, you have a lot of Seventh Adventists on the island. It's easy to get that. But then they wanted a conference to pay the premium. And then we take the premium back from the members. I think you can understand why we were hesitant to do something like that, because unfortunately, lots of church members just would not look at us to honor their obligations. The reality is, however, that when we talk about mitigating, Sister Haji used that word earlier, mitigating against risk, managing your risk. The idea is that we ought to take responsibility and view the reality of life, that there are times when things go wrong. We live in a world where there is sin. Some say that if you live healthy and you follow the principles of health, you don't need anything else. What's your response to that? I don't know which one of you want to jump in there.
I would say, listen, you can live healthy, you can follow all the principles of health. You can, and those will help you against a number of things that are happening in your life. But no matter how healthy you are, that doesn't prevent you from falling down off of a ladder or having an accident. You decide that you want to put up something in your house. You decide to stand on a chair, it slips and you fall. Good health doesn't prevent that. You're going down the road and you mind your business. Somebody's not minding your business. Somebody's coming down on a bicycle and crash it with you, and the fall is greater than you can that you anticipated, and you end up with a severe sickness. Those are things that good health doesn't prevent. It might help in terms of in how well you handle recovery. But there's going to be need for you to have X-ray. There's going to be need for the doctor might very well recommend MRI. There might be a need for you to have surgery. Those are things that might come as a result of an accident that you did not foresee. And no matter how well you're in good health, those things can happen. Those things good health sometimes doesn't prevent yourself from deciding that they're going to multiply in an unusual way. And as a result, the doctor says at the end of the day, hey, listen, you have a cancer here. So yes, good health, live as best you can, follow health principles, but also recognize that there are things that can happen in your life that you didn't plan for. That good health doesn't necessarily prevent you from encountering. And when that happens, that is the time that you're going to need significant input into your health bill. And that is why you need to make sure that you take the steps necessary to make sure you'll be in a good position to respond.
Yes, Sister Hodge, I'm struggling to hear you again.
Yes, okay. And are you hearing me?
Yes.
And to add to that, the younger you are, in terms of taking out a policy, your premium, the lower your premium would be, and the higher the chance that would be accepted. There are persons who, they come to the insurance company and they wait until they're, further advanced in age. And because of all the health complications which they have at that particular point, the insurance is not in a position to take on that particular risk. So I encourage persons to get a policy when you're young. And because you stand a chance when your income would have increased once your premium would be stabilized. And so you're in a better position to maintain coverage throughout your life than to wait when you're older to try and seek coverage. It's a bit more difficult. You may be rated, meaning you'll be given a very high premium because of the risk of all the health issues which you can have as you progress in age.
Now, there's a comment that is in the chat that I want to read first, and then I'm going to ask a question. And then we can talk about that comment, because it's, to me, I'm not knocking the individual, but it's an interesting comment. It's a comment that, let me just read it. It says, health insurance is definitely too expensive. The amount I spend yearly in doctor bills is 10,000 times less than a yearly insurance total. I take my chances. Now, before you respond to that, I have a good friend who suffered a terrible health tragedy. As I recall, it was a vehicular accident. It required air ambulance, and then the hospital's first question was, do you have insurance? So when we talk about the comment that I just read about the person said it's 10,000 times. I don't know what kind of premium that is. So Sister Hajj, I want you to speak to that. Give us an idea of what premiums are like for an average health insurance coverage. And then what is the average cost of an air ambulance? Let's say from Antigua to Puerto Rico or Miami, and how could insurance help in a case like this?
Which was for an air ambulance from Antigua to Miami, Puerto Rico.
Sorry, could you repeat?
The average cost, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, the average cost for an air ambulance, say from Antigua to Puerto Rico or to Miami, it's around $25,000 US.
25,000, sorry, 25,000 US dollars.
Yes.
Just for the air ambulance.
Just for the air ambulance, that does not include the hospital stay, the hospital visit, just to have the air ambulance come to pick you up. And because when the air ambulance actually comes, the doctors have to be on the air ambulance. They will liaison with the doctors here to ascertain, what type of specialist they would need to come on board the air ambulance, and from there, and before they come, they would want to know that there is acceptance from the hospital overseas. And the hospitals normally would not issue an acceptance unless they have a guarantee of payment, how they will be paid. So we do not know, when accidents or eventualities or a major illness, that person who wrote in, I think they have a lot to give God thanks for, that they have been healthy up to this point. But you never know what can happen. And as I said before, it's about risk management, managing your risk. And what is a risk? It's the possibility that an eventuality can occur. And these things can happen because we see every day in our society, persons are coming down. How many persons are coming down with cancer? How many persons are coming down with other major illnesses? And there are times when, because we live on a small island, that the medical requirement is not available on island. And there are lots of times when we have to source it overseas. And when an insurance company is involved and they know that there's a guarantee, it will be accepted. The insurance company will ensure that the process overseas, that it's seamless and that everything is well organized. So if you happen to have an eventuality, you wouldn't have to be wondering how you're going to be getting care. You have to be you have the stress of organizing everything. So it's, again, it comes down to managing your risk, and it comes down to transferring that risk from yourself to the insurance company and having peace of mind.
Now let's go back to the comments a little bit. And I'm taking it that there's a bit of exaggeration in here, because the person says that the doctor's bill is 10,000 times less than the yearly insurance total. Now, of course, your age and your fitness and those kinds of things can impact what your premium might be. I believe you would want to tell people, Sister Hodge, that start young. When you're healthy, that's when you have the best chances of having a good premium. But there are two things about this that concerns me. One is that you may be, and I think Pastor Joseph hinted to it earlier, you may be relatively healthy. My friend was, to the best of my knowledge, very healthy, not having to go to the doctor or anything to that effect. But then they got into this terrible accident, and the accident required that they be airlifted immediately out of the island. The hospital, the first question, the hospital that they were being transported to by the ambulance, their first question before they left the island was, does this person have health insurance? Because as you said, Sister Hodge, they want to be guaranteed that they're going to get their payment. Now, if we're talking about 25,000 US dollars just for the air ambulance, and that has not, does not include the cost, the medical cost associated with it. The medical cost can be very, very expensive. So we're talking about maybe $100,000. An individual cannot just immediately jump up and pay something like that. So, you know, it may be difficult for you to answer this, Sister Hodge, but on an average, if you're able to, what kinds of premium can a relatively healthy person, let's say a person 25, 30, even 35, expect to pay for a good health coverage?
It depends on the type of policy that the proposed insurance is interested in. You can have, you know, very, very affordable rates, depending on your age and everything. You can have a monthly premium of less than $150 or within that range. And I would say to persons who Seventh-day Adventists, because I know of other church members that have done this, they have placed themselves in groups, say groups of 10, and they have approached the insurance company, and they have, say from a particular church, and they have opened a policy to ensure that they are covered. They're not leaving it directly to the church to do everything for them. So persons can come together, band themselves in groups. The younger and the healthier the group members are, the better the premium you would be able to get from the insurance company. So that's an avenue which can be explored for persons who are interested. They can appoint an administrator of the group who would be responsible for, you know, collecting the funds. Make sure you have persons within the group who you know who are trustworthy, persons who you can trust. Well, all of our members should be trustworthy, but that is another possibility. But I have seen instances where persons have cancelled their policy, having the same mindset that the listener just voiced, and then a major illness, and then there's no coverage, and the insurance company cannot do anything to help. And that is really unfortunate that, you know, when persons are in a position that they need help, that because there's no coverage, there's nothing that you can do. So I know persons, you know, want to feel that they are, you know, they're comfortable, and that's the same way we look after our cars and we insure our vehicles, and most of us insure our homes. Why not insure your health, to ensure that if there's an eventuality, you wouldn't have to call for fish fry or, you know, a barbecue at the side of the road. You can confidently go to your insurance company and you can have coverage.
You know, Dr. Greene,
Yes, Carson.
There are individuals who have gone through a good portion of their lives without having any major medical issues. And so they don't fuss. As a matter of fact, there are some individuals who just don't see it necessary to even have an annual consultation with their doctor because they just feel that everything is all right. But then one day they get up and they don't feel as they normally feel, and they go to the doctor and they realize that the doctor has to put them through a battery of tests and examination, and then something turns up that was unforeseen. And that is a real challenge here. Many of us who feel, and I must confess that it happens to me sometimes, when you know that you need to get an annual, especially at my age, sometimes you say, well, I'm feeling okay. Why bother? Why bother? But it is at the time that you begin to feel a pain here or pain there that you go to the doctor and you discover that is so much worse than you could ever imagine. And so I would want to challenge members to pay attention to their health. At least get your regular checkup, at least pay attention to your health, but also understand that no matter how good your doctor might be, there's sometimes something that creeps up on you that you did not anticipate. Your doctor didn't even foresee that coming, but then it requires a major injection from you. You need to be able to put yourself in a position that if something like that happens, you're able to respond adequately and not put the burden on others. I think Ellen White kind of hint when she talks about preparing ourselves, making sure that we lay aside something, making sure that we prepare for a rainy day, that we do not become a burden to family members or even others when that time comes. And we have a personal responsibility to make sure we take the necessary step to inoculate ourselves against the disaster that's pending.
I want to add something here. I am presently recovering from surgery. Now, I am a health freak. I am vegan. I exercise regularly. I have been generally very healthy, not having to spend money on doctors and that kind of thing outside of my annual checkup. And I went for my annual checkup this year, and I had to end up doing a major surgery. So you can be healthy, you can be living according to the health principles, etc. And out of the blue, something happens. And I tell you, if I didn't have insurance, there's no way that I would have been able to afford the surgery. Definitely, even with insurance, it's a burden, let alone. So I would say a word to the wise is sufficient. I had a professor who used to say a word to the average is adequate. But it is something that one needs to seriously consider. Again, I'm making reference to the fact that as an organization, we are inundated with appeals for medical help. And there is, in as much as we want to help everybody, we just are not able to do that. It's not possible that we can do that. And so you understand that I'm speaking from a perspective of actually urging and begging individuals to do something about managing your risk, in the words of the insurance lady here. Because as a Christian, God expects you to be able to put measures in place to be able to handle the emergencies of life when they come. So, you mentioned, Sister Hodge, that even individuals who may find themselves struggling can band themselves together, form a little group of 10 or so, and they can have premiums ranging from $150, $200, $300 a month. We're talking about EC dollars here. And to be able to, let me go the high end, $250 a month as a premium, EC dollars. Consider how much you spend on topping up your phone every month. Consider how much money you spend buying lunch every day when you can cook and take your food to work with you. These kinds of things, one needs to examine his or her reality and position. And if you have children, and the beauty about it is that if I understand you correctly, Sister Hodge, generally, you take out a policy, it covers your spouse and your children, correct? Generally. So you're protecting your family. And I don't know if I can say it any better than that, but let's move on. There are a few questions that I want to get to. Somebody's asking here, is it possible that you can be paying insurance and when something happens, the insurance says you're paying for the wrong person? That's a question, Sister Hodge.
I've never heard of that because I know once persons open a policy, there's a due diligence with compliance. You have to present your identification, and that is very, very part of our process. So I've never heard that in terms of health insurance that someone is paying for the wrong person. I've just never heard of it. No.
All right. So here's another question. Why do insurance companies stop giving insurance past age 70? A lot of seniors are more healthy than those younger.
Well, most insurance companies are now considering some form of coverage beyond the age of 70. It has to do with reinsurance because, transferring of risk again from you, the insurance company. Most companies ensure that they have reinsurance, and the higher the risk to the reinsurance company, the more the cost will be to you. But most insurance companies now are moving towards extending coverage beyond the age of 70. And this, I think, will be done incrementally as it's something which is new within the market.
Pastor Joseph and myself would be happy to hear that because we're not very far from 70, Pastor. So. All right, another question. What would you say to members who believe that taking out an insurance shows a lack of faith and dependence in God? Maybe Pastor Joseph, you can respond to that question. What would you say to members who believe that taking out an insurance shows a lack of faith and dependence in God?
There's a passage that I always use. I use it primarily when I bless a house, a business, or so. It's Psalm 127, and I like to emphasize on this part. It says, "Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that built it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain." So the text talks of God keeping the city. But the text also talks about the watchman being in place. And I always interpret it this way, that God expects for us to take steps for security that we can take care of. And beyond that point, he promises that he has us covered. And so God doesn't expect us to be callous, careless, or indifferent with the things that he has blessed us with, but that we should show due concern for them. Yes, God watches over us, but God himself says that there are going to be times when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. God himself says that he will show up to be our strength, or she, because he knows that we encounter challenges and struggles in our lives. God wants us to take the necessary steps in our lives to make the necessary arrangement to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, secure ourselves, and he guarantees that once we are in sync with him, that everything will be all right. So the Christian really should not feel somehow that because he is a child of God, that God has him covered. If you look at the Bible, and you look at several of the stories in the Bible, you will show that even individuals who have trusted in God have had their encounter with difficulties, with challenges, and yet still they have been faithful to God, and God has been faithful to them. There are circumstances and situations that happens in our lives. That's a necessary part of our existence as humans. But God expects that we would be wise enough, that he has provided us with enough information that would guide our action, and he expects us to respond that way. God doesn't expect that we would be docile and just sit back and say, God will provide. I mean, if we take that attitude, I could sit back, stay at home, don't go to work, God will provide, because we serve an amazing God, right? So we can't make that argument that God will provide. Therefore, we should not take steps to secure ourselves, to protect ourselves, to provide for ourselves.
Pastor, I'm glad you articulated so well on that point, because I have known of individuals who, and this may sound unbelievable to some persons, but I've known of individuals whose companies where they work, their employment agencies, have health insurance coverage, and the individuals refuse because it's a co-pay arrangement. So that, let's say the company is paying 50%, you pay 50% of the premium, or sometimes the companies pay 70%, you pay 25%, whatever the 30%, whatever the case may be. And there are individuals who believe that because they're Christians, they should not be dealing with insurance, and they refuse. And then those same individuals get into a problem, and they come to the church and ask the church to help them come up with $40,000 US for this operation that is so important. And if the church were to say that, sorry, we are not able to, we have helped 45 persons for the year already, then they say, oh, the church is not caring and kind. So I'm hoping that people listen to what we have shared today. And I would want to encourage you, if you have a friend who needs to hear this, you can go to SLC Church channel, and we play this episode or any of the other past episodes that we have shared in the past. SLC Church channel is where you find all the past episodes. We're going to wrap it up here because our time is dwindling away. We only have 2 minutes. I just want to remind our viewers that next week we have a special Let's Talk program coming up. We do have part 2 of this one, but that's going to be week after next. Next week, we have a special program coming up. We are going to be talking about the matter of religious liberty. Hear me, religious liberty and the vaccine mandate. That's religious liberty and the vaccine mandate. We will have a special guest with us, Dr. Nicholas Miller, Esquire. He's a legal counsel and director of public affairs and religious liberty from the Lake Union Conference of Seventh Adventists in North America. He is also, Dr. Miller also serves as professor of church history and director of international religious liberty study, the Religious Liberty Institute at the Seventh Adventist Theological Seminary in Barron Spring, Michigan. So that's a very special Let's Talk program next week. And then the following week, we're going to be talking about the more troubling matter, life insurance. So we have some amazing topics lined up for you. Be sure to get in on them. Now, I'm going to ask you both to give your closing thoughts because our time has expired. So in a few seconds, your closing thoughts. Let's begin with Pastor Joseph.
We live in a world that has been affected by sin. It is God's desire that we would be in good health, that we would have continually been eating from the tree of life. But hey, listen, the fall came, and as a result, we have been declining, and we look forward for that day when God will usher us into his new estate, into the new kingdom, into the new earth. But until then, we continue to struggle with a number of things, and God expects that through the wisdom he has provided to us, we will make the right choice. As a child of God, ensure that you consult with God and be guided by his Holy Spirit all the time so that you can make the right choice for yourself, for your family, and for the work of God.
Thank you so much, Pastor Joseph. Sister Hodge, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. We should all remember that our health is our wealth.
Not hearing your sister.
Yes, okay. We should all remember that our health is our wealth. And when it comes to our finances, we should ensure that we include God in our finances because we know he multiplies, and we can always trust him to ensure that he will take care of us.
Thank you both so much. It was a pleasure talking with you. I look forward to our next conversation, which is going to be the 20th of November, 3 p.m. And remember, next week's special program, vaccine mandate and religious liberty. Don't miss it. God bless you. Until next time.